Hi all and welcome to a new series, well, mini-series. It's going to stick in one of my other Anyway, we today are talking about mundanity in video games, and I'm going to be covering a couple of different games that do this. What do I mean by mundanity? I mean, I find there's this odd section of games that are incredibly mundane in what you're doing. Viscera cleanup detail being one. You are a janitor, you are cleaning up a level. Post a sort of Doom style gameplay where everyone's been killed, you know, you've got the raiders hanging up corpses and things like that, and my job's to come in, clean it up and make it usable again for the corporation or whoever. But what you actually do is mop the floor and various other things like that. And you'll see this in other games, you know, your Euro Truck Sims, farming simulators, a whole host of different games that I'm just really interested in because they actually create something that's quite interesting and fully formed, especially for a game, using some mechanics that could traditionally be seen as boring. And I just wanted to play more of this type of game because I've not really gotten around to playing a load of them, to see what they offer and why people play them and what I enjoy about them and try and get to the bottom of what they're doing. So today we are going to be covering and having a look at a Viscera cleanup detail. So let's start an assignment. You get a host of different assignments here. The work sites, the different ones, and you can see, like here, it tells you how long it's going to take. The longest one I've done so far is the Pestilent Penitentiary, 3 hours. Took me about 3 hours, yeah, 3:09. I didn't realise it did best times. I did finish that one. It's weird, there's something weird going on with saves in this game. So let's do the next one that's about an hour. Refinery. I did just have a look at one that seemed suitable. I think refinery, yeah. And you can change the game rules here. I definitely think this game works in a simulation style game sort of format. And I think there's a big reason that games that do this same thing as this type of game are explicitly have the word simulation in the game name. So we are janitor, age 22, occupation sanitation engineer. Brief, this somewhat dilapidated oil refinery, as you know, was a victim to a recent, quote, incident, unquote. Unknown mantis entities appear to have invaded from below the surface where they were disturbed by facility operations. They have almost certainly all been terminated by this point, surely. As always, company protocols stipulate that you should operate efficiently and with discretion in carrying out your custodial duties. Work safe, work smart, work hard. So, my corporate overlords are determined that this place needs clearing up, ready for more work to be done. You can see bullets on the ground, monster corpses, and we're given a few basic tools to get the job done. We are given incinerator. You dump body parts in there to get rid of them. We have box dispenser. So bigger body parts, it's just as efficient to run them up, but say all these little bullets, you want to put them in one of these as to pick this up and then put it in the incinerator. And then we have a mop bucket dispenser, because our tools on our person are a mop with this great physics work on them, and you'll clean the bits of the floor like so, and you see our mop gets dirty, so we have to go over to the mop bucket, clean it, and that water only lasts so long. So it creates this task. Oh, we've got this as well, a MacGyver. Yep, that counts as rubbish. This spot over here does not. It's sort of got a hot and cold mechanic. You know, beeps more when there's more rubbish. So what the game is very clearly simulating, and I think it's such an interesting place to play around with, is... oh, we have this as well. If we need to get to higher up areas, we can do. Yeah, so this is the game. You know, you find an area, say this body over here. It's split up into pieces, but we'll start moving it out and burning it up now. You may as well get some of these closer ones. So my tendency in this game, it's weird because you even with something that seems quite simplistic like this, you do start developing like a tactics relatively quickly. This is another tool we have. We can turn things into fleshy burnt balls of meat, but we have to leave the tool where we go. And honestly, I've experimented with it and it doesn't seem much quicker. The only benefit from it is, say this, I could do 2 of them and pop them in one of these. But running around just carrying them like this seems to be quite effective anyway. But you develop these like little strategies of how to min-max sort of like these simplistic interactions. Something that I've sort of seen that, you know, I don't know if you've ever done a mundane job in life, but if you're doing something quite mundane, so one common job that I've had to do for my work is wrapping parcels for Amazon. And I think, or like doing dishwashers and cleanup on restaurants or pubs. That is another one. A job where you are doing a mundane task over and over again, but I think that you can find sort of like this weird solace and joy in the task by like trying to complete it faster and faster. And I dropped that. But yeah, trying to complete it faster and faster, sort of giving the that's like the part that you push yourself to do it. I don't know if it's something common to everyone else, but it's always sort of been the joy of these more mundane jobs for me. So something I do want to show. So this human body here, they always have these tags with their name on them, which I think is a nice touch because it sort of humanizes instantly what you're doing. But you also find very quickly, even with these attempts at humanization of the things that you're throwing away, you find quite quickly in this game that you quickly revert to just doing your job. You know, that there's sort of a stereotype in, and it's one that this game plays on, but in film and such, of the disinterested janitor, or the disinterested manual labourer who's just sort of eyes glazed over doing their job whilst some horrific stuff is going on around them. That could be, you know, they've got their earphones in and the monster's chasing the protagonist in the background, and the janitor doesn't notice because eyes are glazed over, so on. And you find yourself like this game actually quite effectively puts you into that position and forces you to simulate that. Where's that box? Here it is. You notice there is a bit of framiness in this game. I think it's because there's quite a few physics objects going on. It's a relatively old game now. But so this game, what it does then, it sets out mundane tasks, clearing up a level, but is explicitly non-mundane in its theming. And this isn't going to be true of all the games we cover for this. You know, I'm currently, just as a hint for what's to come on the next video, which I believe things could always change, you know how life is, but I believe is going to be Euro Truck Simulator 2. And something, you see how normal it is straight away that I'm clearing up this guy's guts, this person's guts. But yeah, so Euro Truck Simulator 2 is explicitly operating in the mundane, but in a simulational way, whereas this is, yeah, okay, it's still simulational. What I mean is, it's using mundane actions and mundane theming. So, you know, what you are doing is you're driving trucks, and it simulates that to its best of its ability. It's not particularly interested in you, say, simulating trucks in space, as other games may have you doing. It's interested in you simulating trucks literally around Europe, and Europe is a part of what it's doing. Whereas this game here, Viscera, is it's interested in aliens and experiments gone wrong and horror films and other bits, and then the way of processing that is these mundane interactions. I hate these boards. They just go flying and you can't burn them. Again, weird physics interaction stuff. So I think it's important to look at how these games actually achieve the simulational stuff they're going for. I think it's one metric of sort of not necessarily judging, but processing these games. So getting answers about what they're doing and why they're interesting is looking at what they simulate. And I think the things... It's quite a simplistic game in reality. Or feels simplistic anyway. You know, there's not in-depth systems going on. There's not a RPG leveling up system. And I don't think that's a prerequisite for these types of games. But this game very specifically, I think you would hear sort of terms like tight design being said, because what it does is narrow focus on important things. And these important things are, so, physics objects. How would you have the hilarity? So I before have cleaned a whole hallway like this, spotless, ready to go, and just walked down here, opened, figured out that this door was one you can open. It's not, but say it is. And inside there's a dead body. And then you pick up the dead bodies, and as you walk through, they spread blood. So you get that moment of like having to balance. Oh, that's not the box I thought it was. Having to balance physics objects through these perfectly clean environments that are cleaned by your hard labour, and the worry that you're going to spread blood everywhere. But the spreading of blood is another key thing that this game simulates. So, say this section here. Clean, right? Well, not anymore, because I have bloody footprints. And it's why I don't mop the floors at all. It creates like this this hierarchy of jobs. You should get rid of all the things that are going to cause the blood before you get rid of the blood. Oh, the other thing this game does, it has these. And to be honest, what I tend to do is I just throw them in the thing and go. But it actually provides a story. And I think that's fitting with the narrative, you know. You pick up one of these and just be like, yeah, who cares? I'm just here on minimum wage and I'm here to clear through this level. But you can see that it gives a bit of background story to what's going on. I'm fairly sure one level... Again, I stopped reading them after a minute. And I don't hate the fact that I did that. But after one level... And the reason I don't hate the fact that I did that is because I feel like it gives... Your player has no agency to do anything. He doesn't care that the level's covered in blood, guts and viscera. He doesn't care what's gone on. What he cares about is getting his job done, you know. To its best minimum standard and moving on. Which, who can blame him? I'm sure his pay is crap. I was talking about... Viscera cleanup detail. I'm sorry, I had a point before that, but I found that an interesting tangent to go down. So we were talking about what the game chooses to simulate. So we talked about physics objects. We talked about bloody footprints. We talked about mopping is another key focus of the game. You know, viscera and blood, guts and gore can get on every surface, and that's important because one, you can spread them to every surface, but two, it gives you places to clean. So that I would normally go around this whole level and pick up every little immovable object, but I'm just like showing you what the gameplay loop would look like. But that's it. That's what the game goes for. It hints at a world that's interesting and puts you in the position of a character that doesn't have agency. And yeah, so that's sort of what I was going to say about the notes and things like that. Like, your character is explicitly sort of a blue-collar worker style person. You're not the head of a corporation. You're not the person with the power. You're the person who, as I say, is working a potentially minimum wage job, and just clearing up. You're disinterested. You might want to get the job done, but you might not even care that much. In fact, there's parts of the game that say you maybe don't. But then the game does set out this challenge of, here is a dirty level, go clean it up. And I think as a gamer, your inclination is probably more towards getting that aspect of the work done, you know. Just cleaning the ceiling as you do. And the floor. There's something deeply satisfying about this game. I think there is, like, even... So you can look at some political theorists and how they talk about labour and work. And some paint a picture of there even being a certain level of dignity and joy in work as long as it's properly paid for. And you can definitely see... I think it's less of... For me, it's less of a, like, personally, less of a joy and dignity in labour, but... And that might not be untrue, but it's more... There's a satisfaction. And I think, as I say, we're talking about these explicit mechanics of cleaning. I can sort of step back from this place now that recently had bodies in it and recently had disgusting corpses. And, you know, we've achieved it. Our agency is in this level to clean up this level because that's what the mechanics simulate. We don't have much choice outside of that. And apparently we don't have much choice inside this either. This is proving to be stubborn. I think we're getting through it though. There we go. I don't think I've seen bloodstains quite that bad. But you notice how I talked about that there? That's the way people talk about their jobs. Oh, I've never seen, you know, for instance, I sell flooring. I've never seen flooring that badly fitted. We talk in these like absolute large aspects of the job, and I think that's why this game is successful, because it ends up having you talk about it in the way you would talk about normal labour. So I think this game has actually really categorised why mundanity in games is interesting as a topic to explore. Because the interactions can be... Like, this game feels more than a lot of games fully featured. So you can have a fully featured experience that is ostensibly boring and still get something quite interesting out of it. You can set it in a world that's interesting, is one thing that mundane games can do. I think I would be remiss to not mention like the mechanics themselves as well, and the effects that they do have on play. And it's what I was trying to get at by saying dignity and labour and stuff like that, and I don't think I quite hit on it. But so there is the satisfaction of clearing up what you're clearing, but there is also this oh god damn it, this always happens. If it's had any bloody water as well and it does that, it spreads it all over the floor, because of course it does. The other thing is these can actually produce body parts, which is rather frustrating and sort of exemplifies what perhaps doing quite a difficult job is like, but with crap tools, which I'm sure is something we've all felt before. But I think being able to physically see where you've worked and what you've done is relaxing. I've worked outdoor jobs before that involve cutting things down, so trees, things like that. It is because there was disease going on, so you have to get rid of diseased trees in countryside management. And I think I was about 16, 17 when I was doing that work, and this is because of the weird physics stuff in this game. We're getting a few stutters and stuff, but there we go. Because I was quite young when I was doing it, I quickly... Here we go, this is a body part. You can usually grab it really quickly if you know what you're doing. Avoid it spreading blood everywhere. Quickly realised that I enjoyed doing those jobs because you can see how far you've got. You can see what you've done. There's that moment of stepping back from the job, looking at the area you've done and being like, oh, look at that, I did that. Aren't I good? You know. And you take satisfaction in that. And this is something this game mimics, but it also mimics the doing repetitive tasks and hitting this sort of flow state. In flow state, I know that there is actually some quite strong literature on this stuff, and it isn't anything I've read at this stage, although I do have those sort of books lined up. So perhaps I can speak to it more broadly, or more specifically then, but for now in a broad sense. It's sort of I believe it's this sort of your brain isn't too engaged or stimulated, but it's stimulated enough so that you know that moment when you're doing a task and it may be a repetitive task, but I think this might actually misdescribe in flow state or misattribute in flow state for something else. But I think I'm trying to. I'm going to step away from the word flow state because I think that means something more specific, but sort of more meditative actions, doing repetitive tasks, which in meditation itself is breathing in and out and concentration only on breathing in and out. This is the sort of game where there is enough interaction in it, and this seems common in this type of game as well, from my 2 game experiences that I've had in it. Hey, watch this. Watch this. But it's that sort of meditative experience that you get, and that's the one explosion in these games, in this game anyway, that you get because you're doing a repetitive task over and over again, and you're engaging just enough of the brain so that the mind isn't wandering too much, but not so much of the brain that you're being overly critical about every aspect. And I think that is, you know, that where meditation asks you to focus on breathing, this game asks you to focus in on a doom level just after it's happened. Corpses everywhere. The hero, you never see the hero or protagonist. In fact, it's heavily implied that there probably isn't one. It's not heavily implied, it's thematically implied. So yeah, you do sort of reach this very relaxing state when you played this. And the sort of the 3-hour level that I did earlier, I managed to finish that, and it took me about 3 hours, and I kept logging in and out and was quite looking forward to playing more of this game, because, you know, we have a thing called podcast games, and this is one of them. You know, a game where you're not having to fully concentrate. It's not like a really heavy narrative is going on, not something that God damn it, you need to be concentrating on lines and lines of dialogue, or concentrating on heavy puzzles or intense combat. Instead, you can sort of let the parts of your brain that do that go, and instead listen to something almost passively and play a game passively and achieve something and exist in a world. And I think that's a key thing that mundanity in games often does. You're still allowed to have agency and still allowed to work, but I think you can often close that part of your brain off. But that is sort of going into a full thesis on mundanity in games, and I don't have one at the moment. We've got plenty of games to be playing, and the plan is to sort of play a decent chunk of them and do this sort of non-scripted style content, as say next Euro Truck Simulator 2. And so before we go too deep into a central sort of conclusion on this, I think it would be best to play some of those games, but I think we've accurately-ish anyway, depending on how good my talk is, how good I've done the talk. I'm trying to be funny with words and it's not working because I'm only semi-concentrating on mopping. Yeah, depending on that, you sort of get an idea of what Viscera Cleanup Detail is doing in this space. It is a very accurately, for what it's doing, focused simulation of something that allows us to have a borderline meditative experience whilst commentating on both the experience of mundane jobs but also the aftermath of action games. So that's enough before I just go into full-blown waffle. You know, I feel like I've managed to talk about things without being just fully waffly. A bit waffly, which is fun. I enjoy a bit waffly. If you've enjoyed today's video, and you have any thoughts on mundane games, or what mundane games we should look at, yes, I'm looking at you, Farming Simulator. I'm even looking at, you know, Stardew Valley, maybe a bit of Elite Dangerous, maybe Euro Truck Simulator. We have a certain type of game, you know, games as work, games as mundanity. Do you know the game that actually started this off? RuneScape, oddly. I've been playing a bit of that recently, and I think I'm going to try and cover it for a video. but it's become my relaxation game, my switch my brain off game. But it asks you just to mine for a long time, producing non-mythical materials for a long time before anything interesting happens, and it just made me really interested in why it chose to be that mundane in what it's depicting. And so yeah, we've explored out from there. If you like it, there we go, that made sense. Very good, Billy. And if you want to see me talk more about these games, if you drop a subscription, we will be doing them as I complete them. It's not going to be a super long thing, and it's going to be in this more informal setting instead of a big old script. Right, that's enough for today. Thank you for watching. My name's been Billy. Goodbye.